Our history project is on ancient Athenian democracy.
In around the 5th century BCE, the ancient Greek democracy was created so that many people had a say in laws and other things happening inside their city. We find that it was unfair that women, children, slaves, and other people who were lower in the social chain were not considered citizens. This meant that they could not vote and possibly they didn't have rights.
In 507 BCE, the Athenian leader Cleisthenes established the first form of democracy in world history. In reality, the Athenian model of democracy was extremely limited, similar to that of 1789 United States republicanism, also known as representative democracy. Our topic connects to debate and diplomacy because the topic is on the Athenian democracy and how it was unfair and limited. It was diplomatic for how the ancient Greeks were kind of like our old laws, how women weren't able to vote, and how immigrants, or in Athenians' case, resident foreigners. This was unfair in both cases because the only people that were allowed to vote were men above 18 years old and people of higher power. This was completely unfair because sometimes people are not even considered citizens, even though they probably should have been. No equality whatsoever. Not even half the population could vote because they didn't meet the requirements.
Numbers and equality. In ancient Greek Athenian democracy, all of their rules and laws were pretty unfair, and not many people could even create laws. In a democracy, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote, "There is, first, that most splendid of virtues, equality before the law." However, the equality Herodotus described was limited to a small segment of the Athenian population in ancient Greece. For example, in Athens, in about the 4th century, there were about 100,000 citizens. Athenian citizenship was limited to men and women whose parents had also been Athenian citizens, which makes sense. About 10,000 resident foreigners, and about 150,000 slaves. Out of all of those people, only male citizens who were older than 18 were part of the demo, meaning only about 40,000 people could participate in the democratic process. Any male that was part of the demos, any one of those 40,000 adult male citizens, was more than welcome to attend the meetings. By our standards, that's pretty crazy. It's less than half of their population, and they would probably get better laws if they had everybody to vote. But sometimes that's not true. Some people in our community still think that our laws are unfair, so we can never get everybody's 100% on laws. Democracy was direct, rather than representative, meaning that most of the Athenian men themselves made up the assembly. Around 5,000 might regularly attend the assembly meetings. In addition, Athenian men served on juries and were annually selected by lot to serve, but it wasn't always fair. To get members on the council, they did a kind of lottery. This was because, in theory, a random lottery was better than an election, pure chance. But most historians argue that selection to the Bull Council was not always just a matter of chance. They note that wealthy and influential people of much higher class, and their relatives served on the council a lot more than if the vote was actually random.
This topic is significant because it really shows how hard it was to be a part of ancient Athenian democracy, since no more than 30% could vote in America and less than 25% in ancient Greece. This shows there was little trust in either of the people, and as we have seen, only male citizens who are 18 years old or over could speak, at least in theory, and vote in the assembly, while other positions were limited to those over 30 years of age. Therefore, women, slaves, and resident foreigners were excluded from the political process. In Athens, all adult citizens were required to take active part in the government. This quote from the article really showed there was little to no equality in voting. If they did not fulfill their duty, they would be fined and sometimes marked with red paint. This is an interesting punishment to put mark of red paint on someone to show that they did not fulfill their duty. Also found in this article by the National Geographic Society, it states that the Greek idea of democracy was different from present-day democracy. In ancient Greek democracy, only free men were citizens, so women and children were not considered citizens. This also proves that they had little trust in the people and that only free men could vote.
Once again, it stayed the same because most of the old people were raised the same, and that caused another lack of differing options and solving issues that are supposed to be solved democratically.
I think this all shows that this is an extremely important topic because women's suffrage has impacted many lives over the years.
Ancient Greek democracy, if you were a male citizen over the age of 18, you could vote in the ecclesia, but there were two other branches. One of them was the rule. It was basically like the executive branch. It held 500 men and 50 from the 10 tribes, and they would meet every day to discuss problems and laws before the ecclesia would vote on making it more limited. The options go through less people and the same people so that the views would mostly stay the same, causing the things that can be changed for the better to be rejected, making this more of a controlled democracy than a regular one. The other branch was the Discontrol. This was the court where you could apply to become a juror. If you could vote, it would be like a job, but the salary would be smaller than average salary. So old retired citizens could become a juror. It's very likely that many old men are judging you for whatever crime you have committed, since it was reserved for that very small audience.
The way our evidence supports our claim is the fact that we have data on who could vote out of the population. Rough estimates, but nonetheless data. There are more similarities that we can see now. The big one is that how it was like when America first began. Only adult males can vote, or represented republicanism like our old governments. And they stayed like that, but we evolved our government and made it more fair. But our whole point was how limited and unfair our own government was for many years ago.